evening. How are you?
Super, more than
Thank you
super.
for joining and being the first bakra on this video. Uh,
Was always a
Thank you
dream.
for agreeing to do this. Uh, and I didn't have to push you at all. You were very kind and willing in your intense travel schedules between different states and also Africa. You still have to take me there one day.
Yes.
But Abhijit, for our audience, do you mind sharing a little bit of who you are and what you do, what you're
Well, I lead Project DEFY. It's a non-profit that's based out of Bangalore, but works in several regions, countries. Um, and what we do is something really simple. We try to reimagine the education system by creating learning spaces or schools that have no teachers, no exams, no curriculums, where the students who are between the ages of 10 and 72 as of now get together um, and think and create their own educational journeys. And all of these learning spaces or nooks that we, as we call them, are in some of the most marginalized communities in the world, who are now taking the challenge of reclaiming their own education, and exercising complete control over it. So that's what we do.
Wow. So basically, learners who drive their own learning.
Learners who drive their own learning, but not just their own learning, but they drive their own learning space and learning system.
I remember you asking our discussion in Meghalaya end of last year. We did the core conference and also the visit we did to Malpine. Uh, you mentioned the difference between a learner who goes to school in uniform, sitting on that inconvenient desk, and for 15 years, age, they will leave that desk and go to a college and sit at a college desk and then a university desk. And through this whole journey cycle of, say, 20 years of signing up for, at the end of that, they come out from this system and they then start thinking about what am I going to do with my life versus how in the Nook from day one this is there. And you asked me, and I had to agree that a person who's deciding what they want to learn every single day and what they want to do every single day and deciding those goals based on their innate uh, interests and curiosities versus a standardized curriculum, what the mental health advantages would be. I think we are both resonating on that core phenomenon of the British era industrialization education system. I love your mission statement. I would love for you to share it with the crowd here.
Yeah, I think our misunderstanding is that school or the schooling system is somehow um, like a staircase to get from a point where you are to a higher point in the future and a new reality. We are not experiencing schooling so that we can get ready for a new reality. We are experiencing schooling so that we can get used to schooling. and, and that's all the system exists for. It doesn't exist to teach a child or to empower a human. It only exists so that you get used to the system and you stop asking for freedom and happiness, and you find some degree of satisfaction in looking for those things on Sundays and vacations uh, that are seldom allowed by your bosses. So so this is what we try to fight. It's not just creating a better school or um, a slightly greater chance of livelihood, um, but to escape this idea that my job in society is to fulfill an economy and not fulfill myself. When a child comes to a nook, he's not trying to fulfill an economy. He's not trying to get used to the desk. And he's not trying to learn how to follow orders without asking any questions. He's asking himself, what do I care about now? And it's okay if what I care about now changes tomorrow. And it is okay if what I do today changes tomorrow. These things are fine. But what fulfills me, what fulfills the people around me, and what is it that I believe in? And it is a tough thing to experience, especially if you have never experienced it. Children actually do much better in the nook than the adults who come, because they are used to the desk already, so they struggle a little bit more. But the kids, they find it a lot easier to ask these questions and to not find answers immediately. So um, so a nook is a very strange space. Of course, what is more visible is that people come there, they learn things, they build skills, they build livelihoods. All of these things are fine. But actually, what is happening here is that they are coming in and decolonizing their minds, and doing so quite happily, and with the help and support of other people who are also doing the exact same thing, decolonizing themselves. Even if somebody is engaged in tailoring and somebody else is making a skateboard, what makes, what is in common between them is this practice.
I think I love the name itself, Project DEFY, the defiance against the established norm that education has to be in this standardized factory model, building the workers in the factories through this model, uh, creating long-term psychological challenges, mental, emotional stuntedness and challenges in individuals coming into adulthood almost broken by this system. So that you're compliant, so that you're consuming, so that you're having all these issues, so that you don't actually raise questions to the system. And that's where I see and fell in love with Project DEFY. And I think you have a very powerful statement. It took 200 years to build this education system, but continue the statement, please.
But it will collapse in less than 100 years. It's not going to last very long. And my current estimate is down to 40.
In the next 40 years, there will not be a school.
Oh, in the next 40 years, nobody will remember what a school looked like. It will be, there are some things that collectively I forget what the phenomena is called, but you can collectively forget a traumatic event. And it is something like that.
Collective amnesia.
Yes, once we are past it, we will not remember it anymore. We will have to read about it. We will try to remember it.
Maybe having a museum where they'll show this is how a school was once.
Yeah, we'll see it in museums indeed. And we will definitely be
surprised. NCRT textbook. There's an NCRT textbook.
Surely an NCRT textbook somewhere for this. But no concept of NCRT.
I have an organizational question to you, because obviously you're going to have to adult your way through this.
Yes.
What does it feel like to be at the helm of your organization? And how do you also differentiate between the two?
Between the two,
like there's the organization and then there's the work, which is slash, say in this case, I know we've spoken about the term movement, like how DEFY as an org and DEFY as a movement. How do you perceive, what does it feel like to be at the helm of your organization and of your work?
I think probably I am a half decent CEO, and there are scores of people who would do a better job of that. I've never prided myself for that role. Um, I need the car to go from one place to another, and unfortunately, you've only got me on the driver's seat. So that's how I've seen running an organization in some ways. Sometimes people may see it as a pessimistic thing, but actually it has,
Glorified driver.
yeah, actually it has helped us um, to not have too much of this belief system of authority that I think I would like everybody to believe that they have an okay leader running an organization. That's probably not even my best skill set.
Mm.
I would like the better part of my skill set to be in being a child. And I think some things that children possess are just incredible. They have a very innate ability to connect with people and to bring them together. You leave a couple of kids on the playground, and the moment you look away, they are playing together, or they're fighting with each other, or they're doing something. But you leave a couple of adults in the playground, and they're finding corners to be alone in. So this,
On their phone,
or they're
talking to their friends on social media.
and being suspicious of each other. So I think it takes being a child to build a movement, and it takes um, just a lot of impossible belief in a future that everybody around you is saying is just never going to happen. you know and these are not people who don't know about the education system. They are the experts. They are the ones running education organizations and funding them, and so on and so on and so on, and have zero faith that actually education can change. So what choice do you have? You must be a child. You have to take them very less seriously, and you have to find a way to connect with people regardless. So, so I think that's what it is, and it's a conflict sometimes between being a leader of an organization and the child of a movement. There is a conflict sometimes, um, and sometimes I have to be a person that I really do not want to be. Um, but I feel that as long as I'm in service of the child and trying to protect that, I'm always being a better and better leader for an organization, even if we incur some losses, even if we miss out on some opportunities, even if we are slow, even if we, you know, um, are not the largest organization on the planet, not even close. Even then, um, there are some things that we are able to do that many, many, many others are not. So um, I'm avoiding all the playbooks and all the templates and every self-help book and every how to build your non-profit and how to build a for-profit and how to fund an organization. I've skipped all of those and spent my time on Star Wars. I've picked up all of the organizational philosophy and human philosophy and societal learning from the infinite universe of Star Wars.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with
Uh,
you.
so, very interesting. I like what you said about how the child, the movement, and the adult that kind of looks after this child and tries to keep it alive and nurture it, because that play energy that comes from the movement side of it. I think the child version of me named this organization Helm of Fate, and the managing director is like, how the hell do I explain to people what the hell this is? I think we resonate there. So, Abhijit, very quickly for our audience, can you tell us what are you trying to solve through your work, which is, say, on the big picture side, how it translates to on the ground? Uh, maybe take us a little bit through that.
what we're trying to do is shift the narrative of education, where the child is seen as a future economic asset, to seeing the child as a child. It's as simple as that. Seeing the child as a human, a complete human, not a human in the making, not a human that is ripe after 25 years and ready to slaughter, but a human that lives, breathes, thinks, believes, cares, even when he or she is 3 years old. So now that might seem very philosophical, but uh, actually it is what determines the practical dismantling of an education system. So as of now, I mean, we started with first showing what could an, a different learning environment look like, because there is enough philosophy in a lot of books uh, written by people much wiser, much older than me. I did not need to write another book, but there was not any great example of a radically different learning environment that actually worked for somebody who was not a multimillionaire, somebody who was not even middle class, somebody who belonged to that 70%, for whom the large option has been either go to government schools where even the teachers might not show up, um, or, I mean, perpetually suffer the consequences of your poverty. So, um, so that was where we started, and today there are several nooks in several countries, and an additional part of this thing, this belief system is now that it will not matter even if we created 10,000 nooks. What has always changed a narrative or a system has never been an organization. It has always been a movement. So how do we bring people together, organizations, individuals, governments, children, and create a movement where they start building this new reality, this new future. And mind you, changing the education system is not as simple as changing the school. Uh, you can put as many plasma TVs and AI operated, AI enabled software. It will not change anything. Changing the education system is changing humanity, changing the human narrative, and that cannot be done by an organization. That can be done by a movement that goes far, far beyond the boundaries of the organization. And sometimes we must sacrifice the organization for the sake of that movement.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We're learning how we can sacrifice better the organization so that the movement can exist, and the people can come together, and nooks will be created, and maybe even better ones that we have ever built before, and maybe without us. Maybe neighborhoods will get together and feel confident enough that they can create their own learning spaces and they don't need permissions from anyone. That, just like how the Indian National Congress one day woke up and completely unrecognized the British government and declared India free without asking for anybody's permission. Uh, that one day India and the rest of the world will wake up and say, we just don't believe in the schooling system anymore, and we don't need anybody's permission to create a learning environment of our own. That's the path we are on. It's a fun path to be on.
More power to you, man. And a quick question: who should get in touch with you? And this can be from a curiosity to explore the work, or it can be a curiosity to expand their own existing work. Like, who do you think would value from getting in touch with you?
I've always maintained that if you liked what I just said, you should always get in touch with us. And if you completely hated what I just said, then how can you not get in touch with us? Don't you have enough curiosity to find out and to convince us that we are wrong? So there's an open invitation, and we have. I'm being very honest here that We have not just tried to meet organizations or funding agencies. We have met that individual parent who was thinking about their child's, education. We have met that old person who suddenly realized that they have been completely scammed by an evil system and they have nobody to talk to about it. We have met with that government official who has spent years and years trying to fix the education system and finally is, on the verge of complete disillusionment. We have met nonprofits that have for years tried to fulfill schools and take children who could not access them and then could not see any real change even after doing that. Um, and we don't know. Sometimes these conversations lead to partnerships, but that's the organization talking. What it really leads to is changing the narrative for at least one person. And I think I really believe in that, and I feel that if any moment or any time of my life can be spent on that, it's time well spent. So so people who are, of course, interested in creating their own learning spaces or creating nooks in their own communities, they should reach out with some urgency. People who want to create these systemic shifts and want to work with us on that, work with entire states, governments, and make a radical shift for a large region. They are also reaching out to us. Um, but yeah, your reason can be from the impact or the relevance to a single person to a billion people.
Yeah.
It's really your choice.
No, that's a beautiful way to put it, and very humble way also, that you don't sacrifice the individual for the greater mass. You look at them in their own respective priorities and don't belittle the individual. That's something we tend to do in a collectivization principle. Thanks, Abhijit. You answered my other question also, which is who would you like to get in touch with? Uh, which is again the reverse of that. But partnerships with people and how DeFi has grown to where it has grown to today and continues to expand. Um, so from this lens, could you maybe share a little bit about what significance partnerships has played for your journey?
We made a very early decision long back in our timeline that we will never create even a single nook without partnering with someone. In fact, we will never find a place on the map and do something just because we want to do something there, but instead sort of work by invitation. And so this by invitation bit has stayed with us, that every nook becomes alive because there was an invitation by someone, an organization, a company, a group of people, an individual, um, to co-create a nook in where they are. So partnerships mean everything to us, but this but is an important one. We are tired of partnerships that are insecure. We are tired
Mm.
of um, we've had many mistakes in our early days where um, we would get into a partnership, and sometimes even us, we would be in this sort of preservation mode, trying to protect ourselves. This is not a good way, I think, to get into a partnership. The virtue of a partnership must be trust, must be going beyond these boundaries of preserving and protecting your organization, the contract that you have, and these, if we can't move past that, it is usually very difficult to even worry about the community, because I can worry about my organization and you can worry about yours, but who's going to worry about for the community whose priority is that. So for us, it is very simple that the reason to partner with us should not be DeFi. The reason to partner with us should be a child, a community, um, and that should be the main purpose of that partnership. And we will all figure out our roles in it. But at the end of the day, we must make our decisions by, keeping them at the forefront.
I think every movement has a flag bearer. The fact that you initiated this does not mean that you're the only one who can carry this flag. That's where
Yes.
the what you said resonates. So I'm glad that what you said about partnerships and these insecurities which come unaddressed, emotions and presumptions, misunderstandings, so many different layers, and um, to be vulnerable is also so. So we are actually doing this whole series of dialogues with our friends, with our partners, with our collaborators, whatever terminology you want to use. I prefer the words friends because I think without friendship, the trust element uh, is problematic. It can't be restricted to a piece of paper, which is a confidentiality of the friendship from a certain benchmark, what it means to be to look at each other in total. Right? It's not that I will only look at one side of you and ignore. So from that sense, I think we first connected back in 2018, 2019. Yes, when we did this Red Bull Basement University. Someone from Bangalore community gave me a reference to you. I reached out to you, and then your co-founder at the time ended. And after that, we hadn't spoken for a very long time. I remember you sharing something very cool that you were working on, which was like a very, tech hands-on kind of a project. I was very, very impressed, and I was like, okay, these guys, I would love to connect with them. And then COVID happened, and brain fog happened, and then a couple of years later, you and I bumped into each other at the Creativity Consortium in Delhi last year, and I think it was just so nice to meet in the flesh, and it had just evaporated that we had connected all those years ago. Still had your number, and so the first impression I had of you and of DeFi and then what it's grown today, I'd like to maybe at this point ask, how have you perceived Helm of Eight? We're doing this at a juncture where we're wanting to talk to people that how we exist as an organization, but we want to do it through the words of our people who know us. So, what was the first impression that you had of Helm's mission, vision, the work that we do as an organization, and yeah, uh, have you seen us evolve?
I'll use the word that you used. You said friendship. There's something very interesting about friendship. And usually it is considered an unprofessional quality in a business environment. But its history is also equally interesting. I think when you see friendship in a paranoid, hyper capitalist society, where everybody is just trying to maximize their own benefits, then friendship reeks of corruption. But that was not the kind of society the Indian subcontinent experienced, uh, for a long, long time until we were invaded um, and colonized. The kind of economic environments that we are used to in this continent, actually before the British, is is not paranoid, is not insecure, and it is based on friendship. And there it does not reek of corruption. There it smells of trust. It's And mind you that all of the economic pundits of today who are telling us about how to build economies, and they use the Western world as an example of how successfully they built economies, completely forget that they never did actually build one. They they stole from economies and they built wealthy conglomerates, which they call countries today. Uh, but the ones who actually made successful economies, were the people living in the Indian subcontinent, or the people living in the Chinese region 500 years ago. It's no secret. I mean, a popular statistic is India contributed to 23% of the world's GDP. And it did that without hypercapitalism, without excessive competition, without putting economy at the top, and instead putting the self-fulfillment at the top, and community fulfillment just below it. And then economy is the easiest one, the simplest one. And that allowed them to be not paranoid, that allowed them to be secure, that allowed them to trust each other, and that built great economies. And this is what it is. This is the paradox, that for two people, two organizations to work together, they will have to move past the very idea of organizations, which also was born. The present form of all organizations come from the same designs that had colonized us. So we have to move past that. And our only tool to move past it, the only Lakshman Rekha, so to speak, that we can draw, crossing all of these boundaries, is friendship. Because we did not learn friendship from the West. We did not. We have that tool. We have always had it. And um, and the Western world completely ignored it, did not see it, and ultimately it was the greatest threat that destroyed their control over places like India. So I see friendship as a very, very important decolonial tool that actually allows people to come together. And that has been, I think, my experience with you and Helm of Fate. Sometimes I don't even think of the name of the organization. Just like I think you must not be too bothered about what we are called. The names are not important. They are for birthday cakes. But but because friendship transcends these self-preservation mechanisms, I think our journey together has been so beautiful. Even though it's just only been 2 years since we reconnected, um, but that I could completely trust with everything that is going wrong and going right, and scaring me, um, and that never was weaponized against me, and that was never used so that you could tell me of one more problem to solve that you would be better at solving at than we would be. That's usually the sales pitch. Make the client understand what they are doing badly and then show them. Instead, you did something very different. You were able to help me have some confidence that these things will work out, and sometimes that's all that was necessary. So yeah, I hate to say partnership. I'm very glad for this friendship. It is to me a far bigger superset to a partnership. um, and I don't care if people feel that is unprofessional.
I mean, thank you for sharing that insight, friendship, the deep significance of that, and not just a utility tool, to be used as and when discarded when purposes serve. But it's kind of a companionship, a co-journey. Got to learn so many things by uh, talking to you, understanding your passion, kind of getting inspired by it, because we've taken the motto dharma of the mottos actually comes from the dharma, that I was scared to vocalize early on, but this whole in service of others, and not to see them as others, but as your own self. And in that, supporting the few, working with the many as the tagline took, the mission statement that took was a little more on the SDG narratives. Like some places I had to play the consulting part, but the ethos was that if there's somebody who's serving the realm, who is supporting the people who are in service of the realm. So we took it a second degree layer, which is there are a few people who are working for the benefit of others. We want to make sure they are good, or we can make good with them, for them, so that they can continue to do the work for the masses. And from that ethos, this work has emerged. And if there's no friendship in that, then what for is this journey? Like I cannot be in a cold situation going on a long journey with someone, like something like, human about it. Without that human connection, then it's just like organization, process, system, tech, and nameless, faceless kind of an equation of consulting, which I absolutely hate. And we've experienced a few of those now. That palette. All right. So on closing, Abhijit, as collective vision of our work together, uh, what do we hope to do in society, and what gives us excitement moving ahead? I think I've been, it's an honor to be an advisor with Project DEFY and to be able to advise the leadership, the team on certain aspects where they seek it. And in some places that they don't. But nevertheless, thank you for that entry and space in the Bible. For me, the curiosity has been that how does Project DEFY work for inclusivity in the intellectual disability space for persons with special needs? How can a Nook serve for this kind of special learning needs that's not built on the system that we spoke of before, but it's actually built for these individuals who have a special access requirement? And what's that safety and what's that safe space? And for that, I'm with you for the long run. It's a personal journey. But yeah, any thoughts on where we may land in our collective journey beyond over the next, say, 10, 20?
Yeah, I think sometimes, and so my wife usually jokes about this, that if I meet somebody for 30 seconds and then I come home and I tell my wife about that person, and I say, oh, yeah, my friend, this is my friend, and she'll be like, Abhijit, that's barely an acquaintance. It's not a friend. And I kid you not, I have made a full visual story about how we will be spending the next 50 years together, and that person has only spent 30 seconds. So of course I don't scare them with these things. And again, it comes from this sort of very childlike imagination of connecting with people, that if you're connecting, why would it not be for the lifetime? Why would it be for a short period or a short purpose? Why would even there need to be a purpose? It's the whole point is to connect, and that's enough. That in itself is quite nice. Plus, I think we both run organizations, and one thing I've always said is anybody who will stay very close to ours We'll either see a great movement unfold and a complete rehaul of the future, or the most glorious failure that they have ever seen, one of the two. Either way, it's worthy of popcorn. So, I see it this way.
Happy to have a good seat in the house. For, but thank you, Abhijit, for sharing so honestly and so freely uh, our beautiful relationship. Uh, yeah, thanks.